Hello everybody in YouTube land. I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday or whatever day it is when you're watching this video. I am back with another limited collection deck video. In the past ones I built the decks live, but today I'm trying something new. I've already pre-built the deck, so I'm going to talk about the decks, the choices for the investigators, which are pretty simple. I basically just chose 3 I haven't built around that could have made a good team, and then some upgrades for each of the decks. So in one of the previous videos I made, people were like, Justin, you should do this for 3 investigators as opposed to the usual 2 that you do it. So today we're going to be building one with one revised core, 1 copy of the Dunwich investigator expansion, and 1 copy of the Carcosa investigator expansion. I will be building 3 limited decks. So our fighter, our goon, is Mark Harrigan. I chose Mark Harrigan just because, like, he's good. He's very good. He draws cards when damage is placed on a card he controls. He can use Sophie, if you don't know who Sophie is, to take direct damage to get an unexpected courage for a skill test. And then if he ever has 5 or more, you have to flip Sophie, which gives him -1 in each of his stats, which is notably, like, something. So just one of the things to be aware of, but we have a good chunk of soak in the deck to hopefully help mitigate that. Soak that is also, like, has an effect as well. There's other cards like something worth fighting. No, True Grit exists in here, but I chose Guard Dog over it. But one thing I'll just, before we get into this, True Grit is an option as well that you could run over the, let's just see, we actually make sure we have it. True Grit is something you could run over the Guard Dog, but I like Guard Dog's also just ability to deal damage as well. So we'll get into the Mark deck in greater detail in a second, but let's just look at who else we're going to be building with here. Daisy Walker. She's a really good Seeker. And I think when you're playing with a limited collection and you're just starting out, besides maybe playing with the investigators that interest you, it's also just a good idea to play with the investigators that are really good. And Daisy is really good. It helps you get, like, a handle of the game, because naturally when you're just starting out, your skill level is going to be lower when you're just starting to play, which these videos are focused for. Hello, new player. I hope these limited decks help you out. Our Flex Roll. The Flex Roll is a character that can both get clues and fight, is none other than Ashcan Pete and Duke the dog, and Duke lets him fight or investigate with a base skill of Fist 4 or Book 4. So really nice investigator trio here that is very likely to find success. Now let's look at the Mark Harrigan level 0 deck before we get into the upgrades. So, because this is a shared collection, there is some cards that are being shared through this, that we are going to keep an eye on, and I'm pretty sure I got it right this time. Last time I had too many copies of Fine Clothes, but now I think we're all good. Let's look at our weapons. So because this is a taboo list free, if you don't know what the taboo list is, you can find a video about it on our channel. Machete is a really nice, strong level 0 weapon. This is like a good priority weapon to find for Mark Harrigan. One thing you might notice, if we look over here at the curve, we actually have 9 cards that are over 3. Conveniently, we have none that are worth 2, which is kind of funny to look at the curve like this. So there is a good chunk of our cards that cost a good chunk of money. 1 is very doable. 2 is manageable, but still sometimes awkward. 3 or above, that's where it gets a little bit clunky. So as you can see, our Machete and our 32 Colt, they are both 3 cost items. If you have both of these in your opening hand, Machete is obviously the priority. It does lose its value if you're engaged with multiple enemies, but luckily in 3 players, Duke the dog can, Ashcan Pete and Duke the dog, he's there to help you mitigate some of these struggles that might show up in those situations. 32 Colt is also very, like, nice and Mark because you have 5 Fist. Notably, though, you don't get any Fist boost from 32 Colt. That's why it's lower priority. However, it still is 6 shots for a gun, which is really nice. We're also running a 1 of 45 automatic just because you want to make sure you find a weapon as the main fighter. We have, sorry, I'm going to the card page. There we go. We have Prepared for the Worst to help us get there. And Prepared for the Worst we're going to use to find these weapon assets. If you already have them, you have a Fist and a Book, which you can commit to multiple tests. Like, Fist actions and book actions are going to be happening frequently, so this is never a dead card. Going to some of our other expensive cards, we have Beat Cop. Level 0 Beat Cop is certainly much worse than level 2 Beat Cop. However, this one is mostly here because he soaks for you, which then turns into card draw. He gives you +1 passive Fist, which is really nice because Fist means that you can hit better with your 32 Colt, you can hit better with your machete, you can hit better with your gun, you can hit better with just a regular punch action, so that's what this is really nice here. He does cost 4, however, so you can only have one of your allies in play at a time. And if you have a guard dog in play, it might be hard to get the Beat Cop out, but luckily the allies in this deck are very sacrificial. So if your Beat Cop dies, because you have 5 fists, you're not going to be up the creek without a paddle, right? You'll probably be okay. Especially because you also have something like Guard Dog waiting in the wing. So Guard Dog, 3 health, which is really good for soaking for Mark. And then when an enemy attack deals damage to Guard Dog, you deal 1 damage to the attacking enemy. What also this does with Mark is it turns into card draw. Because remember, whenever damage is placed on a card you control, you draw a card. So this is just also really good soak. But notably, once again, we just have to be aware of our curve. We have emergency cash to help us here in the economy. If you have the Nathaniel Cho Investigator deck, you want to look at something like Clean Them Out is a great option. Clean Them Out can help you get even more cash. This is not what we're looking at here in this video. So both Clean Them Out and Stand Together do big things for Guardian-only economy. So just something that you can be aware of. If you happen to have the Nathaniel Cho deck. However, with this deck list here I'm presenting, we are not using the Nathaniel Cho deck, but I still want to flag them out here. Okay, going on, we have 2 copies of Fine Clothes. These aren't great. I can't think of a notable parlay in Dunwich. Maybe I'm going crazy. However, what this does do is it still is just soak. It's a 1/1 soak for 1, and then it also replaces itself because of Mark's ability. So just, it's pretty good soak for a non-competitive slot with this deck list we're doing. Going over to our events, we have a bunch of things that help us. We have 2 cards that help us, like, do our job. So one of them is Let Me Handle This. So say someone draws an encounter card that is an enemy. You can say, hey, I have drawn that enemy. Or let's say someone draws an encounter card that's a foot test, and you're like, you know what I can do? With this card, I can test at 5 foot, so I can keep you safe. So Let Me Handle This is very good in Mark for both enemies and cards that they might not want to take. Like if you look over at Daisy, Daisy has 2 foot. Ashcan has 3 foot, so he's a survivor. He'll probably handle himself. We also have, no, not prepared for the worst, On the Hunt here. So On the Hunt, this allows us to, instead of drawing an encounter card, search the top 9 for an enemy and spawn it engaged with you instead of its normal spawn instructions. This is really nice because it basically just says, hey, I want to find an enemy, I want to fight that enemy, and I want to kill that enemy, and I don't want to potentially draw an Ancient Evils or another encounter card that I don't want to deal with. And this is just a way of being like, I got this covered. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot a ghoul this turn. So just a really nice card here. Also only costs 1. Last card here we're running is Shortcut. So Shortcut could live arguably in any of these decks. It's good in Daisy because she can move to get clues. It's good in Ashcan Pete because he's the flex and he can run some splash cards. However, I chose it in the Mark Harrigan deck, but you can kind of just like adjust to how you see fit. I think the free movement, if he doesn't need it, he can use it on somebody else. And then if he doesn't need it, it probably means there's no enemies to deal with. So he's going to have the downtime to get through it. So this could go in anyone, but I chose it for the Mark deck for these 3 decks. Looking at our skills, we have Guts to help in the Mythos phase. We have Inspiring Presence to ready and heal Beat Cop and Guard Dog. This gets much better with Beat Cop 2, but it's still fine with Beat Cop 1 because you don't need to, you can just heal them. Same with Guard Dog, just healing them is really nice. Notably, it also has like really relevant skills. You can commit it to Daisy Investigating, you can use on you fighting during the Mythos phase. It works really nice. Overpower, because you're going to be fighting and you want to replace this card. We have Unexpected Courage as a 1-of. I kind of split the unexpected courage is a bit funny for this one, but I do think that I do think that this can, rather than putting like 2 in both of their deck in one of these decks, giving them each one is probably better in the long run. That's kind of one of the things you're going to have to do with limited collections, so that's why I chose that. And then we got Vicious Blow because it's vicious and it kills enemies. Going down to the upgrades. So rather than giving like an upgrade plan, there's a lot of great cards that you can upgrade through. Upgrade 2 in this. You can go to the... you can get the upgrade of 45 to just fight more, ignore the retaliate. Upgraded, so you can get the lightning gun if you want a nice big gun. Notably, this does cost 6, so the economy is, you have to be even more aware of this costing 6 resources for your economy. We have the shotgun as well, works very well with Mark, costs 5, also got to be aware for the economy. But then you can look at things like upgraded emergency cache, which now replaces itself. Upgraded emergency cache, which now gives 4 resources or 4 supply tokens. You can grab Stand Together, which you and Investigator are going to draw 2 cards and gain 2 resources. So like if you're looking at the economy upgrades, like this is the way you want to handle this. We have the upgraded Beat Cop. So now what you can do is you can exhaust him, deal 1 damage to him, draw a card, and then also deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. Because remember Mark's ability, after damage is placed on a card you control. That's fun. Going back to the upgrades down here, we have Charisma, if you want to run Beat Cops and Guard Dogs at the same time. Like if you really like the ally plan, Charisma is the way to do it. We have Ever Vigilant, which works really well with Stick to the Plan. So let's look at Stick to the Plan first. Before you draw your opening hand, put 3 different tactics, supply, or events and attach them here. You have tons of great options in the deck. You have Ever Vigilant if you upgrade into it. 1 at a time, play up to 3 assets from your hand, reducing their cost by 1. That's economy and action compression, which is really nice. You have Prepared for the Worst as a notable tactic. Emergency Cache is a notable supply. On the Hunt is a tactic. Let Me Handle This as a spirit, so it doesn't matter. But like, there's a lot of great choices. Ever Vigilant is also a tactic. Extra ammunition if you are playing big guns, like especially if you're playing shotgun or lightning gun. This is a good way to basically add an additional copy of each of them to your deck, considering lightning gun comes with 3 ammo and shotgun comes with 2 ammo. So extra ammunition is basically just another copy of that card for only 2 resources and 1 experience. Notably, with Stick to the Plan, it also is a supply. So also with Stick to the Plan going through, you may play one of the cards each turn as if they were in your hand. That's what it's also really good at. Mano a mano, absolutely not necessary, but I always flag it. Free damage, free testless damage is very rarely a bad thing. I might like this card more than I should, but I just have to give it, I have to shout it out. I love Mano a mano. And then we got upgraded Vicious Blow just to deal more damage. So that's the Mark Harrigan deck. Pretty straightforward. Deals damage. One thing to know as well, if you're playing this Mark Harrigan deck with a limited collection, Sophie can also be used to help you bump up your book stat. I don't think it will be necessary because I do think that Daisy and Ashcan are going to do great at getting the clues that are needed, but just something to be aware of. Let's go over to Daisy Walker. So Daisy is just the nice, traditional, really easy seeker. She's going to be here getting clues for the party. Let's look. She has 5 book in her ability. Let's make her a little bit bigger. You may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to activate tome assets. In a smaller collection, there are other tomes, but there's one noticeable tome that's like the good one. And that's Old Book of Lore. So this allows you to exhaust it, choose an investigator. That investigator looks at the top 3 cards of their deck for a card, draws it, and then shuffles all the other cards into their deck. This card's really good. This card is really good at helping anybody find what they need, and with Daisy, you get a free action for it every turn. Normally, you would run these as a one-of. You could run these as a one-of, right? Because we have a card that can help us find our books, which I'll get to. And then you could replace an Old Book of Lore with another copy of Guts, if that is your style. However, I'm running 2 just because it is half a Guts, and I think for new players, especially if you lose your Old Book of Lore, having a backup one is a nice option. We find our books with Research Librarian. So what these guys say is basically, I'm going to add a 2-cost an action and two cost onto a tome in your deck. So this allows you to find a tome that you want to play, your old Book of Lore, and put it in and then play it and just make sure you have it. So basically look at these guys as additional copies of old Book of Lore that also soak and add 2 in an action to the cost. Our ally suite here is a little bit rotational. So it kind of depends on what you draw. Art Student, they discover a clue at your location and then they soak for you. These could be something else depending on play preference, but I am just running them here because the rotating ally into the upgrades is a nice plan that we have here. And then we have Dr. Milan Christopher, who gives us a book, but more importantly, gives us a resource every time we investigate. So resource economy is not as hard here. If Dr. Milan is in play, you're going to find yourself like drowning in resource tokens. If you have the Harvey Walters, you can always grab also Burning the Midnight Oil, which is a really good economy card for Seekers. Okay, going back to the deck, we have Magnifying Glass. Gives you +1 book while investigating. 5 is a very comfortable number for Daisy, but getting even higher is not a bad thing. Dr. Milan, I said, also helps with the book. Getting those 2 in play at the same time, a Dr. Milan and a Magnifying Glass, you're now looking at 7. 7 book, which is like, you're not going to fail. That's a very strong number. Down here, we have Strange Solution. I would have been remiss to not include some of the upgrade cards here. There is a tome, untranslated version, that translates into a non-tome. So I went with Strange Solution instead, and we'll get into the upgrades, but basically this can draw you 2 cards, and you also get upgraded into something really strong later on. Alright, going into our events, we have I've Got a Plan. This card you can probably upgrade out of it, potentially, because you have a pretty good squad of fighters with Mark and then also Ashcan Pete. But more options is like rarely a bad thing. So just if you ever need, like in your pinch, you can deal 4 damage to a boss enemy, which is very strong for 1 attack. And you're using your book for that attack too. So like caramba, right? That's pretty strong. We have Delve Too Deep because more experience is a good thing. When you're just starting out, you might not know the best time to delve too deep. And the answer to that is usually, most commonly, if not all the time, when you are about to finish the scenario, have as many players as you can resign, and then Daisy's going to delve too deep. Daisy has really nice defensive stats for someone like this. She has 3 brain. 2 foot's not great, but it's not like 1 foot. So like she'll probably be able to survive these. Ashcan Pete and Mark are also really good defensive stats. So, like, the Delve Too Deeps are very not scary with this one. We have the E-Cash because you need the economy to play your old Book of Lore, then your Dr. Milan Christopher. So, just emergency cash is really nice here. And then we got Warder Protection, which basically just says no to an encounter card. And saying no to Ancient Evils is a very fun time. We go to our skills. We have another one of Guts over here. As I said, this could be 2 if you are running the only 1 old Book of Lore. That's an easy switch. But going to some of the others, we got Deduction. There's Daisy in the art. She's going, oh my god, I've gotten 2 clues with 1 action. The efficiency is unheard of. Really nice card, very good skill, one of the best in the game. We have your Eureka, or as I call it, Eureka. Eureka is really nice. I love Eureka. Because it's basically just, you're going to be investigating, and then you're going to turn that investigate action into an old Book of Lore activation. Is that not great? And you're using your book, so you're going to pass the test. These guys last for me until the end of the campaign. They're always good. They're always good. We have Inquiring Mind. This is a really nice level 0 to level like scenario 2, 3 skill card. Gives you 3 wild icons. There has to be a clue at your location. But 3 wild icons is hard to say no, and in the first scenario, this card is a really, really strong tool at your disposal. And then we got Perception. This is like the Overpower. 2 books. If you're successful, you get to replace it. You get a draw card. Really good skill. And then we got the other one of Unexpected Courage that exists here. Unexpected Courage. Nice skill. Just a good catch-all. Going to the upgrades. As you see, this one's pretty simple. We have a Charisma. I think Charisma is pretty strong here because being able to keep a Dr. Milan in play and then rotate through research librarians and art students as you see fit is very nice. Going to the strange solutions, let's just quickly stop there. There are 3 strange solution upgrades. Heal 2 damage from an investigator location. Normally, this one is not the best choice. However, with a mark, you could. However, there are better options. One of which is the acidic ichor. You get a fight with 6 and you deal 3 damage 3 times for 1 resource. That's good. I'll just say it. That's good. That's very good. And then we also have the freezing variant, which allows you to evade with a skill of 6. So I usually always take the acidic ichor, but you could make a case for the others, but I still think acidic ichor is just really nice. If you notice your mark is struggling, this can be an okay choice. Going into some of the other options, some upgrades in the deck, we have an upgraded magnifying glass. It's now cost 0, and you can return it to your hand. This is good for hand-sized cards that might matter, as we're going to see coming up in the near future. But as well, what it also is good is, like, you can, if you're about to get through your deck, you can be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to find my weakness, my Necronomicon, and deal with it. And then you can turn this to your hand, and then just, like, try to get your way through the Necronomicon. We have the upgraded Old Book of Lore, which now allows you to play it. You can spend a secret to reduce its cost by 2. This is really nice if you notice that your mark is struggling with their economy. This is a good way to help deal with that as well, while also assisting yourself and even Ashcan Pete. Upgraded Deduction is just more of a good thing. Daisy is gone from the art, but that's okay because we got this other guy deducting over here. It's a good time for everybody. We have Cryptic Research. This is fast, play only during your turn. Costs 4 experience, so it's like not cheap. But you get to just draw 3 cards fast, or an investigator gets to draw 3 cards fast. Then we got Pathfinder. This guy helps you move to a connecting location if they're not engaged with any enemies. Very strong card. Free movement is really nice. I missed this upgrade earlier, which was the upgrade of Ward of Protection. This is now when any investigator draws a treachery. So you can stop anybody's ancient evils. A really nice upgrade as well. And then we got Higher Education, the last one I want to highlight here. This card's kind of gross. It's permanent, so it's always in play. If you have 5 or more cards in your hand, which you're going to because you have Old Book of Lore and Magnifying Glasses to take advantage of, you get to spend a resource, get +2 brain, +2 book for a skill test. You can use that to investigate a High Shroud location, get a money back with Dr. Milan, do it again, and again, and again. Very strong card. So yeah, the Daisy deck's nice and simple and really strong. So Mark shoots, Daisy clues, Ashcan Pete does a little bit of both. Why don't we look at him for a little bit? So, Ashcan Pete is built around Duke and then his abilities. So let's start with Duke. So Duke, you can exhaust him. He soaks for 2 and 3. You can exhaust him to fight. You attack with a base skill of 4, and this attack deals +1 damage. You can also exhaust him to investigate. You investigate with a base skill of 4. Before you do this test, you may move to a connecting location. So Duke is really nice. Ashcan Pete has a Lightning Bolt. Discard a card from your hand. Ready an asset you control. So, one second. I had to pause the video. Actually, you know what? Let's just do this right now. I just want to look at this. I could do this up here. Okay, good. No. Okay, good. Sometimes I forget what cards came out there, and I was like, did I really miss a Glimmer of Hope? Thinking it came out of Carcosa, but it came out in a much later expansion. So, let's start talking first about the damage side of the deck. So obviously we have Ashcan Pete. Sorry, we have Duke, who is, in my mind, Ashcan Pete. When you're asking yourself, what cards should I discard to this Duke, their answer can be like a good chunk of them. If the card is more impactful, if it's another chance at attacking with Duke, you might as well take it. Like your second copy of Fire Axe is a great card. A second copy of Newspaper is a great card. Second copy of Pete Sylvester is a great card. Sometimes even just like a Survival Instinct that you don't need, or like even like a Perception you don't need in the moment. Hell, even an E-Cash you don't need, right? Like just like if the attack or investigate with Duke is more impactful, do it. Just do it. So, Fire Axe, you can spend resources to increase your attack for this. Notably, you can't use Duke for this attack, so this is like an Ashcan Pete thing. However, you can still, with 3 resources, get yourself up to 8. With 2 resources, you can get yourself up to 6. It's a good way of, like, as your flex, your job isn't to have, like, consistent damage output. It's your job to have the little hump of damage output. So if Daisy is engaged with a big monster and Mark is engaged with a small monster, your job as the flex is to go attack the small monster, take it away from Mark, potentially kill it, so Mark can go and deal with the big monster. That's your job as the flex. And Fire Axe can help us do this. There's not much else on the damage side of the flex because Duke is kind of just damage. So just that's... This guy is built more for clues. But but Duke is kind of just a consistent built-in weapon. And your Fire Axe will work well for getting you over the hump otherwise. Our clue side, we have a good chunk. We have newspaper. You get +2 book while investigating if you have no clues. Because you are the support, the flex, your job is not also to get consistent clues. Your job is to get clues that might get you over the hump. Same logic applies. So you're more likely going to have no clues. So this is going to trigger... If this triggers like 2 times in a scenario, that's a good time. We have, look what I found. After you fail a skill test by 2 or less while investigating, discover 2 clues at your location. Roger Dodger, that's an exciting time. Basically just turning a fail into a success. Happy days. That's the survivor way. We have Drawn to the Flame. Draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues at your location. You have a good stat line. Your defensive line, you're 4 brain and 3 foot. That's a very strong defensive stat line. So you're going to be okay with this. And then just once again, expediting clues is really good. Say, for example, you're at a location with 6 clues, right? You could investigate into that location, investigate at 6. Duke uses your base skill value. You investigate at 6. You discover 1 clue. You get an addition. You get 1 clue, right? Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Upgrade a newspaper is where newspaper gets really good. So let's just stop here. If you want to keep the newspaper in your deck, your newspaper can easily be sided out. Something to just be aware of. However, with this one, when you discover 1 or more clues, you get to discover an additional clue at your location. So this compared to then adding to the look what I found, the drawn to the flame, you have a lot of burst clue potential, which is your job as the flex. My apologies for getting ahead of myself. We then have emergency cash. Money is always a good thing, especially if you have a Fire Axe or some of the other things. You can just put money into it. It's a way to just be prepared for that. And then we got evidence. So, this is another way for you to get clues while also doing your job as a flex. These could be in the Mark deck if you like another splash card in your Ashcan Pete, but I went with this one because I feel like as the flex, this card is like, it screams, I'm a flex investigator! I'm a flex investigator, right? So, it's really good with this. After defeat an enemy, discover a clue at your location. Last card here in the events is Lucky. When you would fail a skill test, you get +2 skill value for that test. Good card. Going into the skills, we have 10 of them. We are running the other 2 overpowers and perceptions. We are the flex. We are going to use them consistently, more than likely. We have resourceful, which allows us to turn a survivor card, not named resourceful, from our discard pile to our hand. This can be like pretty much whatever we see fit. That's like good to us. Look what I found, and Luckies are the best hits though. Survival instinct. This is also your way of managing enemies. You can, like, you're not killing them, but you are evading a good chunk of enemies. If you have 2 of them, this allows you to disengage from both of them. This also can be upgraded out of, or upgraded, or as a great discard card if you don't need it in the time. And then we got 2 copies of of Unexpected Courage. Really strong here because you are the flex. You need to be the most adaptable, and this helps you do that. Going into the other assets over here, we have Rabbit's Foot. After you fail a skill test, exhausted, draw a card. I'm not as high as Rabbit Foot as I once was. However, when I was high on it was when I had a smaller collection, so it still shines there. Just basically turning a bad thing into a good thing. Wow. Leather Coat, it's Soak. It's Soak in a slot that's uncontested. You can discard it and not really miss it. However, it's still just a way for you to mitigate some damage you might take in the future. Then we got Peter Sylvester, who basically says, hey, never die. This is a way for you to mitigate horror almost forever. It gives you +1 foot, which is not like a part of the deck, but still being at 4 foot is really nice. But then after your turn ends, heal 1 horror from Pete Sylvester. My goodness, my goodness. And then we got Lone Wolf as our last splash card. As the Flex Investigator, you're most likely to be by yourself, so this is a way for you to do that, to constantly trigger it, which then fills up your Fire Axe and some of the potential upgrades that we're going to get to as well. I like playing Flex Investigators. They are my favorite way to play. I haven't played one in a long time, but it is. This is a really fun. Ashcan Pete is a very good Flex Investigator because you're kind of playing with Duke. Duke is very strong, and Duke will really get you there through the distance. Going to the upgrades, let's start by first looking at some of the upgraded ones that are already in our deck. We have the upgraded Newspaper. As I said, this card's really good if you feel like your Daisy is lacking. Spoiler alert, Daisy's probably not going to be lacking. You can probably get away outside of Newspaper. And also as well, there is a Scavenging. I'm not doing it here because it is a little bit more involved, but there is a Scavenging deck that you can do with Newspaper 2 because it commits for 2. If you have, it's just like you can get them back and just like never stop. I'm not doing it here though, but I know someone's going to say something if I don't talk about it, so I'm just going to quickly shout it out here that you can do some stuff there with Newspaper. It's a really nice loop. Upgraded Pete Sylvester is kind of just bonkers. He now soaks for 1 more horror, which doesn't sound like a lot, but now if you take 2 horror, you can put them both on Pete, and then he's slowly going to heal it away. He also gives you +1 brain, which means you now have 5 brain, which means you're like very good in the Mythos phase. However, if you're not good enough in the Mythos phase, there's also Test of Will, which basically just cancels it and then it exiles. Exiles means it's removed from your deck and you need to rebuy it, but you can put in a level 0 card for free if you cannot afford another card. Basically just saying, once again, No to the Encounter deck is really good. Other upgraded cards, the other Survival Instinct. You also, it's just, if you do want to go with the Evade style, this is an upgrade that you can follow. Just something for your consideration. And then going through the list, we have Eucatastrophe. When you would fail a skill test, would reduce your skill to 0, including the auto-fail. Cancel that token and treat it as an Elder Sign instead. Pete's Elder Sign is Ready Duke and +2. It's good. It's good. But it's not really what you're looking for with Eucatastrophe. This is rather just like the ultimate lucky that you can then, as a bonus, potentially use Duke again. It's like another copy of Lucky, but specifically for the autofail or like the -4 token. Flare helps you find an ally, but it also lets you attack for some good chunks of damage and good chunks of fist boost. This is if you really want to go more in on the fighter side. However, it can also help you find a Pete Sylvester from your deck, or if you want to be the asshole and steal a Beakoff from somebody else, go nuts and do that too. Notably, both of these exile flares, so you will need to rebuy them if you do it. However, one thing with the ally one is it only exiles if you find an ally. If you fail to find an ally, flare does not exile. Upgraded Lucky, I don't know if I talked about this, it just replaces itself after it draws a card. Not by any means an important, like, necessary upgrade, but still just nice. Plucky, I think Plucky's a good card. Plucky's a good card. 1 fast, has some horror soak, and then you can spend resource to get +1 brain and book. This is good for the flex, and especially if you're going for, like, kind of the, it kind of also synergizes, this sounds like a lie, when I say it synergizes with Fire Axe because both require you to spend resources. But because both require you to spend resources, the more places you have to spend your resources to do things as a Flex Investigator, the more synergy there is that exists there. This also works true for Scrapper, which works for both Fist and Foot, and this is also a permanent, so it's always in play. Last card we have here is none other than Will to Survive. The best card we never play. Until the end of your turn, do not reveal chaos tokens for any skill tests you perform. That's just strong. That's just a strong effect. I don't know. It does cost 4, so just something to be aware of. But I don't know why we don't play it, but we just don't because the card's just... It's just good. especially in that final climactic moments when there's a boss fight that might show up. Okay. We got Mark, we got Daisy, we got Ashcan. I don't know if I said this at the start of the video, but you can find a link to each of these deck lists down in the description below. But I hope you enjoyed this this trio limited deck building video. If you like this style more, let me know in the comments. It does allow me to talk more about the deck as opposed to like the process of building. So ultimately, I do think this is probably a better video format for this. But let me know in the comments. Likewise, if you want to see me build with any specific investigator combinations, whether that be 2, 3, or even 4 players, let me know down in the comments below, and I will do that the next time I do one of these series. I've been averaging 1 a month for the last little bit, so it'll probably stay at that level as well. Sweet! I really appreciate you watching. Huge thank you to you, the viewer at home. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Likewise, a huge thank you to all of our patrons, which you can find down below me on the screen. If you want to become a patron and support the channel, lowest is $3 a month. Joining an upcoming patron play-along league that we're going to be having coming up starting in September, which is going to be a really good time. You can join our Discord and find people to play with. You can find all that information down in the description of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's!